Alright, I'm back to work on the inner wheel tub. It's cramped quarters in there, and so there's going to be a lot of trial and error. This is one of those times I wish I had a lift. It'd be so much easier to work on this stuff overhead, looking straight at it, than to get squirreled up around in the back and so forth. But the first thing I did was I made a paper pattern of the inside of the quarter panel, and this will be the inside of the rim that's bent over 1/2 of an inch. What I'll do here is I'll add about 3/8 of an inch to the bottom here and create a flange on the bottom side. I'll let this run out a little bit wild. This is an approximation of the shape of the wheel tub, the inner wheel tub, and how it translates to the outer quarter panel. So what I'll do is I'll get this piece made up with a flange and fit it up inside there and get it clamped in. And once it's clamped into place, then I'll try to run the wheel tub piece of sheet metal that runs, or make a pattern for the part that will connect the existing wheel tub to this outer wheel tub. And again, it'll be trial and error, but once I have that, then I'll be able to strike a line and flange that over on the top and trim out the rest, and hopefully that'll just go swimmingly. All right, this will give you a little idea what I'm trying to do, what I'm up against. I have the rim back bent. This will clamp to the outer rim of the quarter panel on the bottom side, and as you can see, I've had to bend it back at an angle quite a bit because the quarter panel leans in quite a bit. I've also had to shrink this and kind of wheel it to get it to have a rounded over shape all the way through here, to try to avoid any contact with the inner quarter panel. At least I want at least 1/8 of an inch of gap between this piece of sheet metal and the outer skin, so I don't get any vibration or anything like that. So right here you can see that it's getting a little more complicated than I wanted. I was trying to make this a pretty straightforward piece, but once, you know, like a flat piece, but once I got in there, you could see there was a lot going on, and so I've had to adjust as I've gone along here. So that's where I'm heading with this thing. So far, so good. Well, I'm under the wheel hole right now, and maybe you can see what's going on here. This is the inner piece that I've been working on. You see how it's curved away from the, I can almost stick my finger back in behind it. It's a little tighter right here as the body starts to work in. I've got it just clecoed into place along that rim that's over bent. Now the next step will be to come from the existing wheel tub and come straight out to meet this. It'll give me a line straight across here, and then I'll trim away the excess and then bend a flange here, and then weld the two pieces together. Hopefully the whole thing works out. This is going to be a little tricky because this is not flat, this is rolled out, but I want to come straight across so that I can maximize my tire travel in here and I don't get any rubbing on the inside. Hopefully it'll work out, and we'll see what happens next. So what we have here is a method for getting this a pattern made for this piece to connect the outer wheel tub to the inner wheel tub, this intermediate piece. And because this is a very irregular pattern, some of it's on an angle, some of it's straight up and down, you have to take, and I struck a line with a marker, trying to keep it as level as possible, coming from this point over. And then using that as a guide, I took little pieces of pattern paper and just taped them in a little bit at a time, trying to hold the contour. Now, when this is transferred to the metal, this will be slightly different, and I'll have to keep restriking the line because the metal will want to, you know, stay flat. And so this line may go up or down, and the metal will self-correct a little bit, and it'll give me a nice flat transition to close this up from one side to the other. Then I'll have to flange this panel over top and then join the two pieces together. And then eventually I'll have to weld it to the car. There's little tabs that have to come out here and cover over some irregularities in this tub. So that's the way I'm going about that. Here's that pattern that I just took out of the wheel tub. I've just transferred it to this piece of sheet metal. I'm going to cut it out and proceed to try and fit this in there and see how that goes. Here's that piece that I've just cut out of metal, and you can see it turned up a flange on it to go up on the irregular parts of the wheel tub that's in the car. And I'm in the process now of doing a little trimming and a little shrinking and stretching in different spots to get it to conform. A bunch of in and out. Again, this would be great if I had a nice lift to work on. I could stand on the floor, but now I got to get on the floor, and pretty great exercise. But that's how I'm going to slowly work this in. Alright, to kind of illustrate what I was talking about before, here's this piece of sheet metal in place that's going to bridge the gap between the inner and the outer. But as you can see, this is my where I struck the line, and as the sheet metal is a lot more rigid obviously than the paper, it's self-corrected to a little bit higher. So I'll go back and I'll restrike this line, take this piece out and flange this piece over so that I can join these two pieces together and then eventually join it to the car. But that's what it's looking like right now, and hopefully that'll be good enough. So here's the inner fender or the wheel tub that goes against the body, and I marked it out where the that connecting piece contacted it here. Now I want to bend over a flange, a 1/4 inch flange, so I don't know if I've showed you this before, but a simple way of marking that out is to just add a piece of 1/4 inch masking tape, and then that gives you your trim line, and then the secondary line, of course, is the line you would bend the flange over at. But this is just a simple way to get a uniform flange on a panel. You could do this with 1/2 inch or 3/4 inch tape, or whatever you want to add in a way of a flange. Once you've established the line that you want to bend your flange at, just lay some tape down along it and mark the outside, trim it to the outside line, and there you have it. Don't mind the noise, they're just grinding up all my trees out there. This is the panel flanged over that I just showed you I added the flange to, and the inner panel that I was working on will just go in up against this one here. That'll weld those two pieces together, and hopefully it'll complete the closure. Now on the back side here, I don't know if I showed you this already, but I put this has some self-stick tape on it. This is it's like a bulb EDPM gasket that compresses, and I put this on the back before I even started to work this in to make sure that I had some distance between this panel and the outer panel, so I didn't get any chattering, and this was not contacting the outer panel. This will stay in there just as a cushion against the outer panel. It's kind of difficult to see, but this is what it's going to look like with the metal in here. You can see it's got these tabs here to cover over some of the irregularities. This comes straight across, and then this follows the outside skin contour, but it's in about 3/8 of an inch from the outside surface. So I'll have to go back and tack weld this all together, then remove the assembly again, and dolly this edge over here, and then I have to paint the whole affair or prime it, I should say, until I'm ready to install it permanently to the car. So the good part about this job is that I got to lay down a lot, getting my rest. Anyway, So here's the completed piece out of the car. Take it out of the car to the dolly over the outside edge over here on the bottom side, and I will seam seal all of this before I paint it. Just going to put a primer coat, rust inhibitor, and it looks a little complicated, but you can see from the outside that it follows the quarter panel shape here all the way down around. This is the door side over here, and this is the back of quarter. And then this bulb, of course, holds it, spaces it off, and it will be eventually welded along here to the car, and then again to the quarter panel on the lip, the inner lip of the quarter panel at the where the tire is. And that's that. Alright, I've got this piece kind of worked in here. It's held in by just a couple of Clicos. Eventually I'll widen these holes out just a little bit so I can rosette through these holes when I connect the quarter panel to the car. I've got to cut through both of these surfaces here, and that's where I'll be continuous welding it along this edge here to connect it to the quarter panel. But it was a bear getting this to nestle in there, because this is like a 045 thick steel, and you know, this is an area you kind of got to work with your thumb, and then I have a little bit of an anvil over there, and it's just a little tight for trying to bend it around that surface there. But that's that piece fitted up and ready to go in there. Alright, this looks like just regular red oxide primer, but it's not. It's actually a Canadian paint. It's called Spray Max, and that's the number on it right there. This is a weld-through primer, and it's pretty nice. Good contact when you go to weld it, and the paint doesn't burn away around the weld, which is a pretty high quality. And a lot of these areas here will be overlapped, and so I want to protect both this surface and the other surface before I weld them together. They're just going to be spot welded, so it's good to have primer at least in between the two surfaces. Not that this is going to be something that's going to be a daily driver in New England or anything like that, where it's going to get rusted out, but might as well do the best job I can to see if I can't keep this stuff from corroding. But I had to pre-paint everything before I actually start putting it on the car. So here's the transition piece welded into place, and these little holes here are where I'm going to spot it to the car. There's a flange under here to receive that. You can see this flange here, right here. I'll just be blending this all together and grinding it off when it comes time. But that's the last little bit that I have to work on. The paint's drying for the inner wheel tubs, so that'll be my next project, is putting that in and getting that welded up to the inner tub. I've already scuffed the existing paint off of the rim, and put some of the weld-through primer on the inside of the existing wheel tub. So that'll be next. That's about it for now.